holistic.
Shiana. Hi, it's Shiana. Welcome to Who You Calling Holistic. So now that we have gotten the harder part out the way, me actually coming back and returning and actually using a microphone and all the things again, let's get into the stuff that you really want to know about, right? It's been some time. I know that I kind of spoke on it when Alex was on, just kind of tiptoed around some things, but I know why you're really here. Well, amongst other reasons, but let's get into what brought me here, why I'm here, and what life has been like since I got here. So it's funny when I was like writing, because I just do bullet points for my outlines of the shows because I can talk and talk and talk as long as I need to. But I was like, I started my outline for it, and then I was like, you know what? I don't think this is the direction I'm going to go. I think I'm going to just mix it all up. So nothing is in order in here, but I guess that's how my mind is working these days. So for starters, first of all, I didn't even ask how you are. How are you? You doing all right? You getting through this year? Okay. I know it's been a hot fucking mess in a lot of ways. But keep in mind, it is a 9-year. This is a year that cycles are ending. This is a year that we are closing up chapters. This is a year that we are wrapping some shit up so that we can thrive even more next year. Notice I said even more because don't discount some of the areas that you're already thriving and be grateful for that as well, because it can be tough in this political climate. But hopefully you remember that. I think it's cool to mention like 2016 had a lot of similar vibes as this year. Things were very similar. Just look back on 2016, look at what you were doing, look what you were into, and look at like who was in office or about to be in office. There's a lot of similar themes, okay? So just look to 2016 and get some answers. I know for me personally, 2016, I had just moved into my apartment that everybody loved, and I had just gotten Lennox. I had just like really said I was going to be massaging full time, and that was going to be scary. But yeah, a lot of similar themes. Also, there was like a lot of building happening in 2016 for me. I don't know about you, but I think that that's what this year has been for me. It's been a lot of building. It's been a lot of behind the scenes work. It's been a lot of resetting, rebuilding, redefining, and refining on my part. So I do remember 2016 music was lit, and I'm looking forward to that. I know we've had some music here and there this year, but like I think 2017, look at that. Look at me rewinding. I think 2026 is going to be good for us musically, because when there's fuckery afoot with politics and shenanigans with how people are being treated, the music scene is lit. I know that isn't like the best way to look at it. However, art really thrives in these current states of life. So just something to look forward to. We need something to look forward to at this point, right? Anyway, so let's get into it. Why Chicago? Why SHEcago? What made me choose Chicago of all the places that I could have chosen? So I've been to Chicago 3 times before I officially moved here. And like you've probably seen the memes, like you go to a city and you're like, I could live here. I could picture myself living here, and you start fantasizing and visualizing what that looks like and how you're moving and what you're doing and all of that. I did that in other places too. I've done it in DC. I've done it in New York. And when I say I've done it, I've visited these places, right? But I didn't visit these places and say, this is it. Like I could truly see myself here. I did in Chicago though. And The first time I came here was in the fall of like 2020. So it wasn't quite chilly just yet, but things were weird anyway because COVID. It was an interesting time to visit because there was nobody outside anywhere. And if you were outside, they were actually serious about the 6 feet rule. If you were on a sidewalk, you really did have to like give yourself a whole bunch of space if somebody was walking past you. It was a whole thing. But so I got a taste of some of the weather here and there, not so much as I did when I first moved here this year, but like I was familiar with what to expect around how I felt here, right? And like what I was and wasn't willing to deal with, basically. And I will say, like, moving here in the thick of winter was, it wasn't how I anticipated doing it, but like that's how it lined up. But it did get me prepared for, what to expect in the next winter ahead. And it also like just, it definitely strengthened some things. But I think if I would have moved here another time, like, I don't think there was a right time to move. That's where I'm going with that. There was not a right time to move. I was trying to move sooner. It wasn't happening because what does life look like when you've worked for yourself and you say, you know what? I want to leave where I've built an entire business. What does that look like? How do you leave that? How do you move? That shit was hard as hell. Like, I had to leave everything I built to start somewhere else, but like I didn't want to work for just anybody else either because I'd worked for myself for so long, right? So you can't just hop up and apply for a job, get it immediately and go. You know what it's like right now. Some of you know what it's like anyway, applying for jobs. I applied to all the remote things that I could apply to. I applied to so many jobs for so many months. I knew I wasn't renewing my lease in October. I knew back in October it was done for me in Colombia. I knew already, but lining up interviews, lining up where to move when I didn't know anything about all 77 neighborhoods in Chicago to scan and to like, scope out. Like I didn't know any of that shit. And it's one of those like, you won't know until you get there kind of things. But like, where do I begin? And I call her like my little sis that lives here. And she was helpful in some capacity, but like I knew of some neighborhoods that I could look into that were safe considering, but I didn't know where I'd be working yet. So how do you gauge picking out the neighborhood and proximity to work? It was so much. It was so overwhelming. It was stressful beyond, I can't even explain. And I didn't know where to begin. So it was really like that phrase I say, like jump or get pushed. And I got pushed. It was very much a free fall. And I landed. I still got my legs. So something worked out, I guess. It did work out. So we're here. And we are here. And that's saying something. But some of the things that led to me choosing SHEcago was I saw in my head already what kind of fuckery we were going to expect with the current administration. I already knew there was going to be some shenanigans. I already knew. I didn't know to what degree the shenanigans were going to get to, but I knew there were going to be some shenanigans. All right. And the way I live my life, those shenanigans wouldn't have been very good in South Carolina with me. Right. I knew I needed to be in a more liberal space. Considering the things I'm into, I definitely knew I needed to be in a more liberal space. And then in a lot of places, especially the Bible Belt areas, again, Reiki isn't even like I don't want to say regulated thing, but there's fine print with some of it. There's fine print with a lot of the work that I do that is more acceptable and more accepted in a place like SHEcago. So that was like the overall umbrella. It was like, you know what? I already know I can't thrive in South Carolina the way I could somewhere else with the work I'm doing and the work I'm going to be doing in the future. So the other part of that was like, I knew what other things I wanted to be working on and was already working on in South Carolina. We'll get to that. And I knew I needed to be around those communities and other like-minded people that could help support that and could help me grow with that work. We know I'm talking about cannabis. I'm saying drugs loosely because you know how I feel about that word. I've talked about it a lot here. The other thing with this, by the way, for those who already know me, have been listening, like there are some like tiptoey moments I feel when I still talk about that stuff here, because although it is legal, I do have a job now, right? And I'm like, what can I talk about? What can I say out loud? What can I share? And I don't think they care. I don't think they care. So that's what I'm going with. You know, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is for permission. That's how I'm moving right now. So, but no, I knew I needed to be around other like-minded people that could help support the work that I do, because I was already making edibles in South Carolina. I couldn't market my edibles. I couldn't market any of that work at all because I was fearful of what that would look like if I did. I remember seeing somebody had like a whole website and you could order all kinds of like mushroom concoctions on there. And I was like, damn, she is really bold. I wish, I talk about audacity. I wish I had that, but I don't. Like, I would just rather be in a place that I can move a little more loose, all right? A little more free with what I enjoy. So here we are. I also knew I wanted to be in a walkable city. And as the saying goes, sitting is the new smoking. And in South Carolina, it was, even though, I went on my daily nature walks, I do still miss my secret garden back there. That is still, it's still it hurts my chest a little bit when I talk about it. But it did get weird closer to the end of my living situation there anyway. Homeless people were like building tents and stuff back there. So there's like some pros and cons there with it. However, I have an Apple Watch. And I remember like it was an effort to close my rings there, even though I went on nature walks, even if I had a real open, flexible day, it was a chore to make sure I closed all my rings every single day. There were several days I didn't close all my rings. I might have stood all day. I might have moved. I might have done 2 of the 3, but the exercise, maybe not. And I moved here. And like, I don't even try to close my rings on purpose. And they were just closing. I think like, I thought at one point my watch was going to explode or something because like all the awards I was getting and all of the, good job and congrats and you're doing it again. I was like, girl, thank you. I wasn't even trying. So I felt like moving here was just going to give me like a better baseline for my health altogether. And again, even though I mentioned it's a 9 year, it's also a Mars year. There's a lot of movement with this year. There's a lot of like fiery energy. So we need more movement as a collective. We need more movement to work through that energy and to get that energy flowing out of us since we're charged up by it. Do you see what the fuck is going on outside, right? So by default, me moving here was going to make me move more. And it has. So good job, Shiana. Another reason I chose Chicago was just like the creativity here. I was talking to a friend recently about how I really do appreciate, and shout out to Jessica, by the way. If you are not familiar with her work already, she's who designed my logo, amongst other things. She did some other dope work with my pineapple picture. She made like a digital illustration, and she's just done some other phenomenal work. So she has her company Dream Seed. But I remember it was probably her that really helped me see this in the work that I do. Yes, I do identify as a healer, as a, what's the other word I use? Multidimensional healer, right? And people can say like multidisciplinary artist or all of that, right? And when I've gone to networking events even, when people are like, oh, what do you do? Or what kind of work do you do? I say healing arts, because I really did, again, shout out to Jessica. I saw that the work that I do isn't just the healing work. There is such a, like, I'm at the intersection of healing work and creative work. And I do know a lot of people that do art and like that's their thing and that's how they alchemize and transmute and storytell. And there is a healing element to that in a lot of ways, but there's not as much of a community. Is that the word I'm looking for? That's probably not the word I'm looking for, but you're going to be picking up what I'm putting down. I don't feel like it's the same for healers who do healing work. So I'm talking, as far as like, yes, massage therapists here, but down to like physicians that are healers and the doulas and all of them, like those healers, I don't necessarily see them. What they do is art, yes, right? But I don't necessarily see them blending the two. Now, are you picking up what I'm putting down? I feel like you are. Thanks. Glad we're here again. So I've put together that I'm a both. I'm a hybrid there, right? And where else would I go to support something like that? SHEcago, right? Like it makes so much sense. There's so much art and history. And yes, there is history in South Carolina, however. But there's just so much like creative flow here. And to be around that, I think inspires people even more to continue the work they do, because it's hard not to be inspired when you just walk outside, right? Versus, in South Carolina, I grew up there. I had to make an effort to be inspired to even leave the house, first of all. I have my hermit moments, but, it was an effort to like go places that I hadn't already been and actually say, oh, wow, that's nice. It was a thing, or it wasn't a thing, right? So it's nice to have that fresh set of eyes in a new location with people who get it. And the other thing that I've shared with some people, you guys have heard me talk about it. I had a few years ago an astrocartography reading. If you have not had an astrocartography reading yet, I don't do them. That's just not, I can't. I don't have the capacity. I know some people have asked like, oh, do you do? No, I don't. I know my strengths. You can come to me with the human design questions, with some astrology questions. Astrocartography is not one of them. My mind can't compute. It doesn't do it, but I still encourage you to get one. I even try to do my own on the like free online thing. No, my brain did not understand the maps, the line. I couldn't do it. So I went on Etsy. This wasn't even an Etsy witch. I know those are really popular these days, but I was on Etsy getting services before these Etsy witches were so popular doing their curses and spells and such right now. But I had an astrocartography reading a few years ago, and she broke down like spiritual growth, career, love, and forever home. And I remember the first time I had it, the forever home list, because it wasn't just one location, but I remember South Carolina was on that list, and I was like, can you do this again? Like, I get it. I appreciate it, but could you do another one? Like, what are my other options? And I can't even remember her response. It was something along the lines of she had to check. Oh, I don't remember the word. I should have looked this up before I got into it, but we're here now. It started with a P. Paran, maybe? Paran, P-A-R-R-A-N. I think that was the word. She said that she would go and check my chart again and check for the something lines. I feel like it was parent lines. I could be fucking that up. But she said, because sometimes there's aspects, like if you have a planet that is, I'm butchering this whole story. Follow me though. There may be hard aspects in my forever home based on that astrocartography that might not be as supportive as another location. Whew, I got it out. So South Carolina could have been one of those spaces. And when she did it again, like South Carolina was on there for career growth, which I will support and say, yes, South Carolina was great in supporting my career growth. I began as a massage therapist there. It was very supportive of that career. And as I started to sprinkle in my other services, again, still very supportive. Was I one of the small few doing that kind of work? Yes. Yes. So that's where I felt like I was meeting my threshold with how far I could go and the audience I could reach there. Do I know that I reached audiences past South Carolina? Absolutely. That's how many of you have met me. Thank you. Again, I appreciate you. I'm grateful for you. Thanks for coming along for the ride. But big picture thinking, the things that I'm into, the things I enjoy talking about, the way I live my life, I felt so stifled in South Carolina. What do you mean I can't talk about weed? I talk about weed all the time. I smoke. And I couldn't even share so much of that. I don't know if they're going to be listening. If they are, forgive me. I love you. My leasing office, they were following me on social media. So I was like, definitely can't talk about the things on here because they're going to report me, And it didn't make sense. It didn't align with who I am and what I want to talk about authentically. So she checked my astrocartography. SHEcago came up in particular for, I have my Neptune and Venus midheaven lines in SHEcago, which means basically let me read my little bullet points. The Venus energy, it will enhance my visibility, creativity, and my connection to abundance. It's where love, art, and money flow together. And then Neptune is very much like your intuition. So it adds that layer of support to my intuition. It helps support dream work and my spiritual work. So SHEcago in particular was very supportive of career growth because the career growth here would be very expansive with the spiritual work that I do. And the astrocartographer that did this report, she even made a reference to Timothy Leary in her report. And this woman doesn't, to my knowledge, doesn't listen to my podcast. She could though, or follow me on social media. She was just going by what my chart said. And when she referenced Timothy Leary, my mouth dropped because she was like, if you didn't know who he is, he was one of the leaders in the psychedelic revolution or Renaissance? I think revolution. And I was like, shit, I didn't even know my life, but my chart knows my life. And look at even the chart says I like mushrooms, right? Even the chart says I'm here to expand consciousness, which is wild. So here we are. Again, I do encourage an astrocartography reading because it can tell you so much. And then I just started thinking about all the other places I've traveled that may have been on that list and how I changed after I went to those places or what that shifted in my life after that. So yeah, get you one of those readings, please. I think you'll learn something from it. If you haven't had one already, and if you have had one already, talk to me. I want to hear if you live where you think you're supposed to be living, or if you are open to moving somewhere else. You can shoot me a DM if you already follow me on social media, or you can also email me at podcast@sheana.com. What else? Okay, so let's get back to some more of the fun things here, right? So I mentioned one of the reasons that I knew I needed to move here was because cannabis is legal, right? So back in 2023, all the years are they're all blending together now. What is life? I think we lost so many years during the pandemic. Years aren't real anymore. I don't think I'm the age I'm supposed to be, which that's anyway. I don't think a lot of people think they're the age they're supposed to be right now. God bless us millennials. God bless us millennials. All these unprecedented times that we've been going through. I'm off track. Okay, so in 2023, again, remember I was already making edibles that I couldn't market to people. Those who knew, they knew. I made some really good edibles. I made gummies that were just delicious and amazing. And I always Reiki blessed them and set intentions with them. So it wasn't even just a regular edible. It was a whole experience. You were going to get some healing with my edibles. And in 2023, I was out with some friends. I ran into, this is a wild story as I'm saying it out loud. I ran into I won't even call it a friend, a peer that I recognize, like a friend of a friend who I also know he smokes. And he was like, oh, you gotta meet my friend. I don't even remember his name right now. Okay. He said I needed to meet his friend, introduced me to this friend, and we were talking, and he found out that I did things with edibles. And then he also found out that I did things with mushrooms. And as we were talking, I told him that at some point with my experimentation, I even created, you're going to see exactly why I had to move. I even created what I called an inception gummy, which was a microdose of THC, a microdose of psilocybin within the THC gummy. Inception gummy. But at the time when I was making them, I had like powdered mushrooms, which it wasn't blending with the gummies right. So if anything, I needed to figure out a way to make not a tincture, but melt down the powder. It was a whole process. You see, I had time to create. This is why I had to move. So Inception gummy was a good time. Again, I couldn't market any of this stuff. I'm sure a lot of you would have loved an Inception gummy. It's not too late, right? But I couldn't sell them in South Carolina. And he was like, oh, I would love for you to make me some of these gummies. I will give you the product, and I would like you to experiment with some of the product to try and create some. This man dropped off 3 large bags to play and experiment with, right? 3 large bags. I was so grateful, yes. However, terrified. Grateful. How did this blessing make its way to me? However, is he going to come back tomorrow and say, and he didn't even live here. That was the other thing. He lived in California. He visited, I'm saying here, I'm in Chicago now. He didn't live in South Carolina. He lived in Cali, had a whole farm and everything. So he checked in. I was able to provide some, and then he never showed back up again. And that's fine, whatever. Where I'm going with that is then I still had large bags in my possession. I didn't want to sell it because what if he was supposed to pop back up or something and ask? So it was just sitting. It was just sitting there, just chilling. And I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? So I did make some gummies, but again, I was terrified that he would pop back up and be like, so give me my product or give me my money or something. And I did tell him that I was going to give a whirl at making a product that had come across my mind before. No pun intended there. See where I'm going with this. But I wasn't sure how to go about doing it just yet. So I wanted to see what it would look like. And that product is my infused oil. And I created, with stellar reviews, the best product to date that I have created. And I mean, my gummies are good. All right. I'm not downplaying those at all. But the oil I created is phenomenal. So I got a chance to experiment with one of those 3 bags. It wasn't even a full bag. Anyway, I had lots of time and lots of product to experiment with. So I made an infused oil, and it's lube. It's lube. It can be used as massage oil, yes, because obviously, but I got down to the nitty gritty with all the witchiness that I could think of at that time. I remember when I was like, you know what? I think today is the day I want to try and do this oil. It was like Scorpio season at the time. And I feel like there was I think it was a full moon in Scorpio too. It was like some very divine timing, very yeah, go ahead and do that shit. Right. And I went and got the bag. I think I probably have pictures somewhere. I went and got the bag, put it in, or I got some of the product out the bag, put it in a container, put it outside on the balcony to charge under that Scorpio moon. So I'm already infusing the actual botanicals already with Scorpio moon energy, which again, Scorpio rules the reproductive organs. It also is death and rebirth. I feel like it's a good energy for that area, right? Could be a good energy. That's touch and go there. And I charged it under the moon. And then around that time, I had charged it under the moon then. And then that December is when I got my singing bowls, right? And I remember after I got those bowls, I was like, what would that look like if I charged that too, right? That seems like a good combo. So charged it under the moon and then also did sound healing to it. And I did sound healing specifically for sacral and root energy centers. Right? Amazing, right? I also did Reiki to it because it felt like I was supposed to. So I remember when somebody was like, how did you come up with this? What made you think to do this? Girl, I don't know. But also it's literally everything that I'm into. So that's probably how. It's everything, not everything. It's a lot of the things that I'm into. A lot of the work that I've done over the years is very much pleasure-based, even down to massage, right? There are people that have had massages that didn't realize that they could feel better. They didn't understand that they could actually feel something that they hadn't felt before. There's pleasure in that. I know that sounds coded. There were no happy endings in my history. I can assure you of that. But I helped people feel good. I still help people feel good. But there was a lot, especially in the South, there's a lot of guilt around feeling good. There's a lot of guilt around pleasure. And all of the work that I did and still do is very much doing away with that guilt. So I even have some fears around talking about this product I've created. And a lot of that is based on that guilt around pleasure, which I'm not necessarily guilty about pleasure, but I am a little cautious in how to go about talking about this product. That's why I was like, oh, talking about it on the podcast is going to be amazing because you'll understand. You'll understand. But how to go about sharing and selling this product without making it lewd and super raunchy, because I don't want, yes, sex can be those things. I'm not downplaying that. If that's what you want, have at it. But there's also something beautiful and spiritual even in an orgasm.
That sounds like some shit Shiana says.
In pleasure, in feeling good, right? And I want to be able to talk about the product that I've created in those ways without making it sound just like absolute filth. And I know there is a way. That's why I was like, if anybody can do this, it's me. My iconic pineapple picture is one of the ways that I've been able to blend all of those things without coming across just absolutely filthy, but still creative, right? So it made sense when I thought of this oil, when I started creating the visuals in my head of what I want this to look like and what I want other products to look like, because this is really my first, this isn't my first product. We already discussed that. This is my first mainstream legal product that I can actually share. So learning what marketing looks like, and what storytelling has to happen for something like this to succeed is a growing process for me, because all the work I've ever done has always been word of mouth, all of it. Even if I were to, and I know I've spoken on this before, Facebook ads and stuff, like those didn't necessarily work for me because you don't want just strangers touching you a lot of times, right? A lot of people that are going to get a massage, they want to ask a friend of a friend who they see, or like they definitely get a referral for that kind of work. And then for the other kind of work I was doing, like Reiki, human design, even the sound healing, even my psychedelic education process work, all of that stuff, word of mouth. Like you're not just going to go to just anybody for that kind of work. You know what I mean? And so I do know that like a lot of my clients that will end up purchasing this product, it's going to be word of mouth for sure. However, I also know that I won't have to say much about it in comparison to the other work that I do, because this product just speaks for itself. All right. And I can share some reviews. I will be sharing them on the socials as I'm rolling this out. It's gotten stellar reviews, you know? And I know initially I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to call it, because I knew without a doubt in my mind, I wanted it to be something around nature. I wanted it something nature-based. And initially, because of the effects, we, people who have tried it, we're calling it earthquake oil. And then I was like, you know, as much as I like that name, I'm not sure that I want to call this product of mine something that's named after a natural disaster. And then I was like, the effects could be like a natural disaster anyway. And, you know, there's chaos in that. And then I was like, no, but still, I don't want to name it after an earthquake. So I knew I wanted like some sort of nature-based something. And then I was like, well, how else could I go about the nature element, right? What other nature elements come to mind for something like this? Like what ending does this product provide, and what nature elements align with that? And then I was like, something with water, right? There's some flow there. There's some movement, and there is some clarity with flow and movement, right? But fire is not the right element for that. But water is. Water for sure is the right element to talk about something of that nature, pun intended this time. And then I was like, well, my last name is Rivers. That feels appropriate. And I love a play on words. The podcast is called Who You Callin' Holistic. And then I was like, oh shit, I'm really creating a product that aligns with this too. I'm not saying I'm creating a product for hoes. That's not where I was going with that. But like just all of it, it all just goes together so beautifully. And I was like, you know, this is very on brand. This whole product line I'm doing, it's very on brand. So we're starting with the water element, my oil, and it's called River's Edge. You know, feels right. And like actually like backstory there though, in massage therapy class. And if you're new here, by the way, I've done massage for 14 years now, which sounds insane. So back in 2011 in massage school, when we were discussing like what kind of pressure people need, what kind of pressure is like ideal for a massage, even though some of y'all, I don't know what y'all are trying to do or what you're trying to prove. Massages don't have to hurt, okay? Those people that are like, go as deep or as hard as you want. You're not going to hurt me. No, challenge accepted. Don't say that, because I can, and I will show you if I need to prove a point. Don't say it. But the term that we used in that was like edge. You want to be like on that edge of just before somebody like flinches because it hurts, right? You want enough pressure. A lot of people say that like hurts so good. You want enough pressure where you enjoy the massage. There's enough pressure that you can feel the work is working, but not too much for it to hurt. So you're on that edge of like pain and pleasure. You see where I'm going with this? So then when I created this oil, I was like, oh my gosh, it can be used for pain and pleasure. So again, you can use it for massage oil but you can also use it for pleasure. And then as I was talking to people, they were like, well, who's this product for? Is it going to be for men and women? And initially I was like, oh yeah, I mean, anybody can use it. But then I was like, no. Not only is my target audience women and has been women, or let me even say mostly feminine identifying women. I didn't say that right. You already know I told you I had a time with Alex and their pronouns. You know what I'm trying to say. A lot of my client base are women. So I was like, it could be for everybody, but it's not. It's for women. Also, men, y'all have enough. I don't even know if any men, there's probably like 2 men that listen to my podcast. There's more than 2. But the men that listen to what I talk about, I know they're sharing it with their women. So that's who the product is for. My product is for women, and my product is for men who want their women pleased. All right? Okay. So River's Edge, I'm so happy to be sharing that I've created this product and I'm actually able to sell it now publicly. All right? Publicly. That feels so good to say and feels so good to be able to do. So backstory with that, and I already knew that I'd have to like break this recording down because there's so much to cover. But I was like, let me at least get to this because this is the good shit right here. This is what I'm most excited about. Forget the fuckery that has been 2025, but out of the fuckery, this bliss that has come about from it. I, again, created this oil 2023. I couldn't talk about it online like that because, all right. And I couldn't go door to door selling it. It wasn't one of those things I could do. And I remember when I chose Chicago, I was like, you know what? When I get to Chicago, I can sell things like that. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I do know it's a possibility. And that's all I need. I just need some possibility. I just need an open door, right? I can handle the rest after that. But I didn't realize how fast that possibility was gonna get to work. Okay. So when we talk about intention and intention setting and like writing that shit down, because I wrote this down. I wrote this down. I don't know the exact time I wrote it down. I did see in some of my notes, I wrote down around the winter solstice in December 2023. I wrote down that I'd have this product. I do know that, and that I'd be able to sell it. And I remember I even wrote down on that piece of paper, which I did take a picture of somewhere because I was like, let me save this for reference later. I wrote down plants and pleasure. It's like, damn, that sounds good, right? That sounds good. And that really is what I've done a lot of work with, plants and pleasure. Of course, this is aligned with what I'm doing. So I don't think I'll get into the full SHEcago this year in this episode, right this second, right today, or right now. I feel like that's a part 2, which I'm doing that on purpose because, again, we have so much to talk about and I want you to be here. So I can share this part of the story because I am going to have this person on the podcast too soon. So you can hear their story as well with this work. But when I got here, I moved here in February. Matter of fact, Valentine's Day, which, by the way, just so you know, I feel like you should know this because it's important. The word I picked this year was romance. That's not usually a word I pick, but the word I picked this year was romance. And I was like, you know what? Chicago really is a good place to romanticize so many things, including like that astrocartography reading. Like the shadow element of that is like, yes, Chicago is very supportive of your career growth and the spiritual work you do, but also don't get too delusional there. And I'm like, oh, fuck, well, what does that mean? What's too much delusion, right? Where's the fine print there? Where's the cutoff? So that's a a thing I'm working through because who defines what delusion, how much a delusion is delusion? I don't even know if that makes any sense. I don't know where to cut that off. Or like the more delulu you are, the more comes to fruit. I don't even know. You got the answer there? If you do, let me know. I'm curious because I know a lot of things. I don't know everything. But anyway, when I got here, Valentine's Day, after I got settled into the apartment, I should have gone through my calendar. I could probably give exact dates when I record like the whole 2025 in Chicago part, which is what I'm recording after this. But I wasn't in my apartment. I don't even think I was in there a full week. Maybe I was in there 12 days. I wasn't in there long when I knew that they needed to repair the floors. And there was like a stain on the wall. I called the leasing office and he was like, oh, I'll have my guys come in there and fix that. That's just a quick fix. And then like the flooring, there was a corner that kind of looked like it was coming up or something. And I just wanted to let them know, like, I didn't do this. This was already here. But maybe you can do something about it. And I think the person before me had a cat too. So like, I didn't know if the cat had done things. Like, I don't know, but y'all need to fix this. I didn't do it. Also, y'all knew you were supposed to fix this already because you knew when I was moving in. So I don't know why this is here. Anyway, if you were not following my story with this, because it was even like when I was writing this outline, this was triggering as fuck. I didn't realize like how shitty some of this was. I knew it, but also looking back, I was like, damn. But anyway, I was out of my apartment. I think I initially said I was out of it for like 10 days. No, I was out of my apartment for almost a full 2 weeks, just after I moved to a whole other state where I didn't really know anybody. I know a couple people here, or I already knew a couple people here, but like, it's one thing to kind of know some people somewhere, and it's another thing to like have people somewhere. You know what I mean? So like, I had just basically spent all the money that I got, because again, if you're working for yourself and you decide to move somewhere else that isn't like, who's funding that? What does that look like? And then business had been so slow. I didn't know where the fuck this money was going to come from to move. That just was some miracles at play. We'll get into that some other time. But I had like spent all my money already to relocate, and I had just paid my rent along with application fees and background check fees and already paying fees to get my license in Chicago. Like, I had already spent money. And I don't know the last time you moved, but moving is fucking expensive. So on top of the fees on the fees on the fees that I had already paid for just trying to get here, I also had to pay to get here, right? And then getting here and like, okay, well, I don't even have a job lined up yet. So I don't know where that money's going to come from yet. It is nothing but God that has me here today. Whew. And my support system. Thank you. That y'all know who you are too. Shout out to y'all because yes. But I had gotten here. Now, nobody gives a fuck about your dog. So I remember I had to leave the apartment for this. Oh yeah, it'll only take a few hours. And I was like, well, where am I going to go with my dog? I don't even have a car here. So it's not like I can, like drive around the city and go for a joyride or go see what's happening out and about. No, that wasn't an option. So I found like a graduate hotel out here. Thank God for that. That I knew, like I called, they were pet friendly, obviously, but then they even had a restaurant area that was going to close after a certain time. But I knew I could go and have like breakfast there at least and take my laptop, do some work or something while they fixed my floors and the wall, because that was only going to take a couple hours. I got to that place because they said that they were going to fix my floors at like 9 or something. So I got to the graduate hotel at 9:00. I was there from like 9 to 4 o'clock. I kept checking in with the landlord like, hey, any updates yet? Because I'm ready to go back to my home with my dog. And yeah, I was there a full work day before I could return home. And then when I got back, he basically said like, yeah, obviously not going to take just a few hours, and there's a bigger problem at hand. The boiler room nearby, there was a leak or something, and that had gotten into my apartment. The floor was really hot in my apartment because of whatever the fuck was happening in there. So it was going to take a little longer than anticipated. And then I said, okay, well, what does that look like? And he was downplaying it a lot. I don't even remember the timeline he gave me. I feel like it was just a few days. I feel like the timeline was just a couple days. And it wasn't. It was 2 weeks. After I had just moved to Chicago, after I had just paid rent for a month, I had to now find a hotel to stay in for 2 weeks. With what money? I don't fucking know. How was I going to get there? I don't fucking know. I didn't learn public transportation yet. All I knew was Uber and Lyft. So I needed to do that. I also had to pack bags that weren't even really unpacked yet because I just fucking moved. I also have a dog. I have a dog I have to take to this place, wherever I'm going to be. So now I got to find a pet-friendly hotel. I've just gotten groceries. I can't even take the groceries with me necessarily because I don't even know what this looks like yet. And that was a dark time. It was a good time, but I was so pissed with the landlord, so pissed with how did I get here? And I didn't have any regrets about moving to Chicago. Like that was not the case. I don't want you to think that at all. I still don't have any regrets moving to Chicago. I know that I'm supposed to be here, but I had some feelings. I had some emotions because I was already grieving leaving South Carolina in general. Like already a lot of heavy emotions with that. But then I had to turn on my okay, well, we don't have time for that right now. We got to survive. I had to put that hat on, which I wasn't necessarily mentally prepared for. Did I? Yes. Thank God. And did I have some blessings come through along that time? Also, yes. Thank God. And then in hindsight, when I looked into landlord rules and repairs for whatever you need doing in your place, I know all the housing things in Chicago now. I'm an expert in Chicago landlords and shenanigans because I learned quickly with the fuckery that I experienced when I got here. So when I look back now, I see the timeline of these repairs that took place because eventually they got the floors done and then something happened and they had to rip the floors back up. I don't even fucking remember. I think I've blacked it out because it was just too much. And I remember the landlord messaging me day 13, good news, your apartment's ready. And in hindsight, I'm oh, I see why he messaged me on day 13 because by law, if there is something wrong with your apartment, like a leak, something's broken, whatever. If you have an issue in your apartment in Chicago, by law, the landlord is to take care of it within 2 weeks, within 14 days. So he put me back in that apartment, day 13, said everything was good. And it wasn't. It wasn't. I even have photos of all of the fucking dust that was stirred up through them doing those repairs. So much dust. The repairs they had to do, they had to drill through the floor. They had to drill through the floor. My bedroom looked like a graveyard. All right. And they drilled through the floor. I think maybe they cleaned up the floor that they had just put down, But other than that, there was dust every fucking where. There was dust on my white headboard. There was handprints on my white headboard. There was dust on the blinds. They fake put tarp on my belongings. So there was dust on my belongings. There was dust on my clothes, everything. There was dust on everything. I don't even know why I'm trying to list it. There was dust on fucking everything. And then I was well, this is a fucking health hazard. How am I supposed to be in this apartment with all of this everywhere? So then I had to get back to the landlord, hey, my apartment's not ready. there's dust everywhere. And he was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll have to arrange for somebody to come and clean up then. So now where am I going to take my dog for that? That's a whole nother thing. Like that should have been handled when I was out of the apartment for 2 fucking weeks. The amount of anger that was awakened in me through that apartment was enough to get through this year, clearly, to put into the things I needed to get done, obviously. It was just like, I'm supposed to be finding a job in this window, right? How am I going to go for interviews? How am I going to even go places right now? Like, I'm not even in my home. So even like finding a hotel, I wasn't looking for a hotel in the neighborhood I was in because I was in Rogers Park at the time, which is up north, and was a pretty decent trek from that neighborhood to like the city area. The pictures that you love seeing of Chicago, those weren't near Rogers Park. I loved that I had the park location, because of the nature elements. For those who have been following me, you saw the beach outside my door. I loved that for me. I did not fucking love that apartment. I did not love the shenanigans they put me through at all. None of that. It was a shit show. I'm glad I made it to the other side. But there was just so much magic when I first got here, even before the shit show took place. Like when I saw that my address was on West Columbia Avenue, I was like, that's cute. And then the beach that was literally outside my door, I think they renamed it later, but the beach was called Columbia Beach or West Columbia Beach, Columbia Beach, one of them. But I was just like, look at that. Look how the stars aligned for me. That's beautiful. And there was just other pockets of that they were great. Synchronicities and stuff, little angel winks. But that apartment fucking was not. It was not. And there was like no neighbors that spoke to me. Like everybody, they were just like fast walkers with their heads down and like what? I know people talk about like going up north and things being different. And I was like, this doesn't feel right though. Like, what is it? Where am I? Who are these people? Why does nobody make eye contact? Like, it was just bizarre. So I just felt very alone in so many ways in that time frame. But the blessing that came out of that was in that hotel hopping I was doing. One of the times, or one of the places that I found, was an Airbnb. And the Airbnb, when I discovered it, I remember it was listed as like 420 friendly. And I was like, you know what? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I had just moved here. Cannabis is legal, but like there's still like some fake rules. Like I don't think to like smoke on the sidewalk. People still do it, but it's not really legal. People still smoke in their cars. It's not really like there's billboards that are like, don't drive. Like there's pockets of the rules, but they're like loose rules here because it's a liberal state. But I saw the Airbnb 420 friendly and I was like, yeah, let me do that. So I stay at this Airbnb. By the way, remember I'm still new, right? Still fresh here. This is a couple weeks in. I don't know what any of these neighborhoods are like anywhere. I don't know what to expect. And based off the media, they're going to tell you anywhere in Chicago, you're going to get shot, right? No, not the case. And if anything, back in South Carolina, y'all got it bad right now with all the guns there. So like, I don't think anybody can talk about Chicago at this time, along with the government. Like, we're not even going to talk about guns and things right now. Anyway, while I was staying at that 420 friendly Airbnb, Lennox got the shits that night. Was not a fan of that. Lennox doesn't get the shits like that. It's just not a thing. I remember like I was already tired. You know, I had already had to repack a bag to get out there that night because I home and gotten some more items to take back out because that was around the time that the landlord was like, oh, yeah, they should be finished. And they weren't. So they kept extending it. So I'd have to go back, get another bag of clothes and take. Anyway, Lennox got shits that night. It was like 4 a.m. I remember like being outside, scared as hell because I was like, I don't even really know what neighborhood I'm in. I just know that even in my neighborhood, I didn't want to be out at 4 a.m. with my dog having the shits. I made it. Everything's fine. Everything's good. But when I got to the Airbnb, there was a THC cafe outside. And I was like, are these connected? Like, is this a thing? So I told myself, because again, I didn't even have a job yet, right? Told myself the next, I'll go check it out. And I did. I think was I going to an interview that day? I think so. I was going to an interview that day. So when I come back, I'll stop by and talk to him or something. And I did. Met with one of the bud tenders there because it's kind of a dispensary-ish. Like they have a few products, but mostly like you can get teas and drinks and stuff and have, what do they call it? You can have it infused. So then you can pick your dosage of how much you want in your tea or coffee or whatever. And I remember I was talking to like the bud tender and I recorded some content or whatever and just kind of said who I was, what I was there to do. And I must have mentioned sound healing or I must have mentioned something with wellness or whatever. And she was like, she got my contact info and she said that she passed it on to the owner. And then I later connected with the owner on the way back. They were like, oh yeah, I want to connect you with the owner to talk to you about some of your services or something. And then when I got back, I met with Sam, the owner, which Sam is now my business partner, which I'm going to have Sam on the show so he can share. That's who I was talking about earlier. So he can share some more about his work and his businesses. But here we are. I literally connected with somebody just weeks after I got here to help support the work that I'm doing. Meeting Sam at that THC cafe then turned into me doing my first sound healing event here, which ended up selling out. Kudos to that experience and those who came to that. And it was great because, again, I got a chance to blend the things, a lot of the things, not all the things, a lot of the things that I'm into and that the people who like my work are into. So I had my first sound healing event here in Chicago was literally a sound healing event that people got a chance to get a ticket for the actual healing, but along with their ticket, they got an infused beverage. And I was like, this is what I'm talking about. You know what? Hell yeah. So what an entry. What an entry to the work here that I'm here to do. And looking back, like the astrocartography wasn't lying, right? I was like, okay, yep. Yeah, you meant that. And the fuckery with the apartment was needed, as fucked up as it was needed. And here we are. So I'll get into more of what has transpired throughout the year, but that's where we're right now. I am excited. I'm excited about my oil. I'm excited about the other products I have lined up with my product line, which by the rituals, it just makes sense, right? It just makes sense. So I'm excited what that looks like moving forward. I'm excited here behind the mic. I'm excited to be doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing. And thank you for being here with me. Thank you for your support along the way. I apologize for neglecting you, but you see, I was going through some things. I couldn't make it. And even when I was trying to record all the places I found, I was like, oh, maybe I could record there. I couldn't. It was ridiculously expensive. And I definitely couldn't record in that apartment I was in. And so it just kept getting moved back and kept getting pushed back some more. But here we are. And I think that this is like the best time to have it back out anyway. So my plan moving forward is to incorporate more of my sound healing work with the podcast as well. And I actually had an aha a couple months ago. I was like, you know what? Like when people are like, oh, how long have you been doing the sound healing? My spiel is usually like, well, I started playing the bowls in 2023, but I was already doing a lot of sound healing work with my Reiki I was already playing solfeggio frequencies, meditating to them. So I was already familiar with sound healing and its benefits and all of that, right? But then I was like, oh shit. I've been doing sound healing because is my voice not sound? Is the podcast not sound healing itself? Bitch. So, anyway, just thought I would throw that little razzle dazzle in. I've been a sound healer for at least 5 years at this point. So, not that I need to like list that specifically on my resume. However, this is why I drill and repeat the things over and over about being intentional with your words and making them lighter when you can, because there's healing with your sound and it's important to understand and embody that. And anything is possible when you do. So we will talk again soon. I know, like I said, I needed to sort of separate some of this because I got pages of an outline, and that's just an outline of what we need to catch up on. So I'm looking forward to, I guess I'm not seeing you. I'm looking forward to you hearing from me again soon, and always check the show notes because I will be incorporating some more immersive experiences with this rollout. I really think that's an important part of the work that I do because that's the art to my healing arts. I like an immersive experience. I like a theme, right? So I want to incorporate, and I'm going to incorporate more of that energy with the podcast moving forward. So I will talk to you soon. In the meantime, remember to meditate and hydrate. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Who You Callin' Holistic. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. You can find me and all my services on sheana.com. That's SHEANAH.